Scott Decker's Felony Friday, Scotty D. I love it. When first getting my hands on it and able to read it, I initially, the first playwright that came to mind was Stephen Adly Gurgis, who was my favorite playwright. And I was just like, wow, this is somewhat like Stephen, but on crack almost. And there's been a few of my characters. I play the role of CJ in the show, and he's a firecracker. He's a ball of energy. Not just my character, but a lot of the other characters on stage as well. And when you have that much energy on stage, you're sure to set something off in the audience, and that's something to look forward to. Another thing I love stepping outside of the play is as an audience member, I feel like there's something, or multiple things rather, in the show that not just me but many others can relate to. And it takes great writing to do that. There's so many different facets to this show, and just the characters on stage, somebody can relate to someone at some point in this show, and I think that's very vital, to have in a play. You will leave saying, wow, I just saw a slight representation of me up there.
It's very modern. There are parallels that everybody can relate to, and I think there are different characters that people understand their struggle, they discuss their struggle with both good and evil, and I think that's seen in each and every character, and I can tell you that every single person in this world deals with that every day. It really talks a lot about, what's the aftermath, how do you deal with that? And it's just quite exciting to be a part of it. I'm excited to be involved and to really just get gritty with the work, if you will. I mean, it's a dark piece, but there's a lot of light in it too, and that's very exciting. When I first read the play, when I had finished it, I was like, this is compelling, it's exciting. I think it shows both the positive and negatives of people and how they deal with that, as I mentioned previously, but it really kind of punches you in the gut. There are repercussions for what you do, how do you handle them, and where do you go from there. So I think with that interlying throughout the play, that through line, if you will, it really kind of keeps the audience like, what's coming next? I want to know what's next, and how is this going to end?
When I first read through Scotty's first draft, well, maybe not his first draft, but the draft that I first saw, there were some stuff in my character that actually hit home personally for me on some levels, and I was like, wow, that's something I'm really going to be able to sink my teeth into and draw from certain experiences I had in my life. And as we rehearsed and got this show up on its feet and running, and the Fringe Festival is like guerrilla theater. I mean, it's like you're like, okay, you're going to be sharing a space with 10 other shows. You get 4 hours on a Tuesday, and you're going to open next Saturday, and that's the only time you see the theater. It's like, holy crap. So our performances, we all felt, or I felt, and the feeling was somewhat mutual from talking to other cast members. They were like rehearsals still. I mean, I don't think we really felt great about the show until like the last show or two. We got picked up for the encore series, and then we got to close out the whole Fringe Festival. And on that last few shows, it was like, wow, now this is a fucking show. Pardon my French, but I mean, this is a really awesome show, and it's like, and the way that my character leaves the stage is just, it's heart-wrenching. It took me to places that I never thought I would go as an actor. And it's been a huge growth experience for me as an actor and as somebody who's trying to get into this field. I feel very fortunate that Scotty's writing led me down this path, and it's pretty cool. This play is dark. It is a very dark play. It has a lot of surrealism in it, I feel, but it's also a comedy. I mean, it's a very dark comedy, and I wouldn't come see this play if you're not at least 16 or older. There are some very touchy subjects referenced in this play. There's a little bit of profanity, but if you want to come see a play that takes you from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds and slams on the brakes and turns a 180 and takes you in a completely different direction 42 times within a 2-hour period, this is the play you want to go see.
Alright, so for me, Felony Friday is Pillow Man meets Seinfeld. You know, because it has the darkness and the intensity of Pillow Man, but it has the everyday conversations about the mundane that are, oh, I never actually thought about that. You know, the type of things that you notice and you maybe never put words to it, but the second they're talking about it in Felony, like for example, the fact that tofu is so weird and that like it's such like a not manly thing, and like vegetarianism, things that you might find annoying on a day-to-day. Obviously this is a point of view, but like, God, vegetarians are annoying. And then in Scotty's play, like, they talk about it. It's really funny. Working on Felony Friday has been a pleasure. First of all, it's nice to work with Scotty, because I know him in so many different capacities. I know him as a friend, as a writer, as a fellow actor. You know, I actually wish our characters had more to do with each other on stage. They have very little interaction. And obviously it's a huge honor to be working with John Amos. I mean, it's unbelievable how much people love this man. I just actually met Julianne Moore and my brother told him that I did a play with John Amos, which I would have never shared, but he told her and she's like, John Amos? Like, the John Amos? I'm like, yeah, him. She's like, oh my God, I love him. You know, so everyone in the world acknowledges John Amos. And also, I'm super excited to work with Sean Patrick Ryan. That has been another huge honor, just being in readings with him. Because I saw him in Scotty's original play, and I was blown away by his work. I mean, he did, it was some of the best live performing I've ever seen. You know, he played Paul Giacomotti, who is a scary mother effer, and he never once raised his voice or got physically imposing, which I think would be most actors' first choice. He's like, oh, if I need to be scary, I should be loud or be in someone's face. He didn't do any of that, and he was really scary. I thought he was unbelievable. Anyone would like this play, because if you're super intelligent, like I said, you could think about this for years. You really can, and you could keep seeing it every time. I mean, I've been reading this play for over a year in many different incarnations, and every single time something hits me, I really feel something like, oh, I didn't notice that. So it's kind of the type of thing that it informs your life, and your life informs the play. So you could watch it forever, really, or keep reading it. Also, I said it's universal, so there's something that you can relate to, whether it is abandonment or wanting revenge or love. It has a little bit of everything. You know, fear. There's religious elements, but you certainly do not need to be religious to enjoy it, or maybe you even would be offended by it if you're religious. I don't know. It's a really, really good work, and I feel like when something's good, the writing and the acting, it'll find its audience on its own. That I honestly feel like with good work, people find it.
It challenges the reader to kind of really reevaluate how they think about the subject matter in the play, whether it be religion, race, class, all that kind of stuff is in there, and it's presented in a way that I think you're not used to seeing, and it really makes you reevaluate how you see those things for yourself, which I think any great art kind of challenges you in that way. I think, yeah, in a sense it is a very bombastic play, kind of like a rock show, in that there's all these, there's all these characters that are really like almost versions of people we meet on the street, but like, on steroids or something like that, like way kind of out there. But I think also a strength of the play is definitely the humor. I think Scotty has got a great sense of humor, and he has a real sense of what he's writing about, but by presenting a lot of it in a comedic way, I think it touches people in a different way, where if he was to deal with it just in a dramatic sense, the reader, or not the reader, or the playgoer might be kind of put off by that. But the fact that he presents it in a comedic way, I think, through laughter, you get more connected to the play you're watching, and then you realize it's actually about something, and so you're kind of loosened up from laughing, but then the real meaning of it hits you, and it's almost like, I don't know, it touches you more because of that.
Scotty's a funny guy. You know, you look at him and you don't think, oh wow, there's a fucking rocket scientist or anything like that, you know, and turns out the guy is a fucking rocket scientist or something like that. He's good with, you know, Scotty is a wordsmith, and he's got a great ear for, you know, the other thing about Scotty's use of language is that he writes in an elevated style, and it pulls off a real sense of naturalism with it. You know, the first writer that comes to mind when I kind of lay out that sort of description is David Milch. And, you know, you look at Milch, and he does have that capacity for crafting Shakespearean sounding linguistics, and you buy it. You know, we don't know what they sounded like when they talked in the 1800s, the late 1800s, but he created something. And that's what Scotty does with his language. Scotty creates a unique world. When somebody walks into Felony Friday, what to expect? I mean, I'd expect to like have your heart punched out. 'Cause that's what you're gonna get. You know, you're gonna get your heart punched out and fed to you. It's, you know, it's kind of like I'm not a religious person, but you know, like something like the crucifixion is kind of a fascinating piece of, you know, it's like this aesthetic, you know, it's like you see a beautiful painting of a tragic thing. You know how many great artists have painted the crucifixion, which, like, who wants to see anybody get nailed up to some wood? I don't know, you know, but you look at the craft behind it, or you look at like Reservoir Dogs. I was just reading an article about Reservoir Dogs this morning, and it's like Tarantino does an amazing job of forcing you, of making you not be able to tear your eyes away from the most horrifying thing you've ever seen, because he's such a craftsman. And, you know, seeing it, you know, Reservoir Dogs is like getting your teeth punched in. And that's kind of what Felony Friday's like. It's like getting your ass kicked by a piece of theater.
This is how it all started.
This is not my first rodeo.
I'm going to tell a witty anecdote about
Go ahead, do that.
Sean's the worst. The end.
Horrible.
That's all I got. I am beyond thrilled that we have Sean back, reprising the role he not only first acted but helped me build with the dialogue. And we're excited to have Jack and Paul going at it again, I think, the way it should be.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of left open-ended.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking a little bit before about, you know, what we had tried to create in Prey, and, you know, although some of the characters are, you know, archetypical or iconic or whatever, when we were creating the Paul character and creating the Paul-Jack relationship, that the unexpected was what I think worked so good about it.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, just, you know, that it was so, it seemed so clear to the audience that, you know, in this fight, you know, Paul was probably going to lose.
Yeah.
And, you know, the way we kind of turned that around, and, you know, the idea of, you know, this guy could not possibly run, you know, a crime family or something like that. And I remember there was one line from Prey about, I've never, you know, we were talking about the Giacomotti family, and we were talking about, you know, the mob and everything, and Detective Jack said something along those lines.
I've never heard of you.
Yeah. And the response was, well, that's kind of the point, isn't it? I mean, isn't the mafia supposed to be something that you've never heard?
Yeah.
You know, because we're, you know, kind of running around in jumpsuits or whatever.
And that changed recently with the Gaudis and with the people that were, you know, on the front page. They started to like the press, which is why they all ended up in jail and or shot or whatever. And the idea was this was the guy who's really running the city. It's his city.
And, you know, I was bringing up too, like, the analogy of a bar fight, that, you know, a guy that's you know, sort of screaming and waving his arms around and throwing things in a bar fight isn't really the guy you got to worry about. The guy you got to worry about is the guy at the end of the bar who's just taking it all in, because he's the guy who's probably going to hit you in the head with a bottle.
Absolutely, or can handle himself the best.
Exactly.
Yeah, the things in Prey, that's why we're so excited to bring this back now, and the flip, because in Prey, Jack's tied to the chair. Jack never gets up. And this time it's Paul in the cell, and it's how I structured it, that like, what happens if you let the alpha male that was tied to that chair loose?
Right.
But you still have, even in a captive situation, Paul Giacomotti is a very dangerous individual.
Right.
A cornered animal is sometimes the most dangerous, and his mind, the way it works, and it's peppered throughout Felony Friday, which I love, because this is a different Jack. This is Jack with backup, literally.
Right.
Or back in, or whatever you would call a possession. But just these one-liners, and that would probably tear Roman emperors to shreds, and these little, and Paul's just bouncing them right back at him, and that's the idea of a worthy opponent.
Yeah.
And then you add into the mix all these different elements of Paul's personality and the situation and these things. It's just such a beautiful mix of, there's so many things to bounce off of.
Yeah.
And the thing with Sean and our cast, it's just so lucky, because when you have that talent, you know the script, you can get a tape recorder to play the words back. You know the script, you stick to that, but within that, the behavior and the moments that we trust each other to go off of, that's where you find things about these human beings that you couldn't possibly come up with on paper.
Right.
Because you have a human being playing it.
Right.
And I think we have a really great mix of some real talent that can create something special.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was saying, you know, having, when we all sat down in Chris's apartment, which was really the first time that I got to, you know, I had seen the show, but the first time I got to sit down with the cast and everything, and just, you know, this group of people that you put together, and the admiration and respect that we all have for each other, which, you know, the best theater, I think, gets created when there's this environment of, you know, respect and trust, and, you know, that's what a good director should do, is sort of you set the tone that whatever happens here, it's a safe place, and it's a safe place to do dangerous things. And if you don't have that sort of, you know, groundwork, I don't know. And, you know, having been around the block a couple of times, it is an unfortunate truism that this kind of relationship that you and I have, you know, sort of on, exactly, sort of on stage and
That's
off.
not on, right? That's how it starts.
But that, those relationships of trust are just far too rare, and it just doesn't happen that often. And, you know, I think about, like, you know, sort of acting pairs that I've watched, and, you know, whether you're talking about like Redford and Newman, or, you know, John Casale and Al Pacino, or just where you just go, there's something else going on there, that these guys so trust each other. And I think that's what we really did find when we were working on Prey was, you know, I don't know how much of this you want to reveal, but we would kind of play with it every night.
Oh, sure.
Even with the dialogue.
And it will be the same with Felony, and that's, now we have all these extra toys, you know, and not just us. They do the same thing.
Right.
So it's going to be a very different show every single night, and you know, you hit the basic plot points and the key jokes and the key moments and speeches, but within that, we live honestly, and it's going to be, and it makes it more interesting for us. You know, you're going to put a John Amos in there, or Mark Sinoway, or any of these you know, these wonderful actors we have. Let them run, you know. And as the writer, there is no script supervisor. My thing is, you just stay in Mark, stay in Big Tiny, stay in, and we're good, you know, because sometimes it will help your play become something better than you could ever come up with alone in your house. No matter how talented you think you are, you surround yourself with talent, and you get better, you know. And their job is to make me look good.
Is that my job?
And don't get my light.
Stay out of my light. And
yeah, but we click. I mean, it's you know the wealth of experience that Sean has, and these other actors, and of course like a legend like John Amos. If you don't tap into that, if you don't trust that, then you don't learn, and you don't grow, and you can always learn.
Yeah.
From as much as the greenest person that is their first play,
Right.
or their 500th, there's something to learn from each of us, I think.
Yeah. And I think what's, you know, what makes that possible in a lot of ways is this is not, I love what we do. Like, I have the best job in the world. I actually make a living doing exactly what I want to do. Which my brother described as I am therefore the most successful person he knows, because I've never done anything I didn't want to do, and to make a living as an actor in 2012 is I'm a very, very blessed guy. But what makes this project so exciting and is this is not something that you're going to see. I find a lot of times going to the theater can be a chore, and it's so safe and staid and predictable that sometimes it's like, well, just read the book or something. And this is not that. It's an experience. You know, seeing this play, I think, is going to be an experience that people are going to really have a visceral reaction to, and they will have to talk about it. And it's unlike anything that's been around the pike in a really, really long time. I had the great good fortune when I was in high school to see some of that early Steppenwolf stuff. I don't know if you saw any of that, but I got to see Gary Sinise and John Malkovich do True West.
Oh,
and and I've worked with Steppenwolf. I just did the Tracy Letts play called Superior Donuts on Broadway, and it's sort of often been described as like a rock and roll energy to theater, and I haven't read a play in a really, really long time, especially by a new playwright, that has that kind of energy. And that's what I think this has. It's like you think you're going to the theater to sit down and just let a play kind of wash over you, and I don't think that you could be further from the truth with Felony Friday. This is a play that you will be involved in, and there are things that are said and things that are expressed that will absolutely force you to confront yourself. And I don't mean that in a in-your-face kind of, oh my goodness, I really don't want to watch this. It's the complete opposite of that. It just, it grabs you in a way that theater always should.
Right.
That in some way that idea, I don't know who said this, one of those guys that we read about in theater history class, might have been like Artaud or one of those guys, said that theater should comfort the afflicted and afflict the comforted.
That's great.
Or afflict the comfortable, or whatever. I'm misquoting. My theater teacher at Oxford would slap me upside the head, but it's something like that, and I think that that's what this does. It's an equal opportunity play. I mean, it's going to offend everybody, and
in good ways,
and not offend you.
Yeah.
And it's not offensive. It's not. There's no shock.
Yeah. Well, you don't.
But
need
it's
it.
shocking,
You don't need it.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
Well, yeah. It's how people talk. It's how people live, and we've always.
And you wrote a play where nobody's a playwright. Nobody's,
I know, right?
Imagine that before. Nobody's a journalist.
Just get that big break.
Yeah, it's a play about
cares.